everybody.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome to Advent of Code 2021. This is actually our 12th take. So if we seem a little loopy or disheveled, we've come a long way to where we are now.
Well, we got the settings correctly now, so my eyes look a lot more tired than they were before.
Anyhow, so at W Coding, we decided as a dev team to make it something that we'll do together to go through some of these puzzles. And we're hoping that you, whoever are looking or watching these videos, will also gain something, if not intellectually, maybe it'll just be fun to watch us flounder in some of these things. But we're also hoping that we can help you understand some of the questions and go over some of the answers together as one perspective or way of approaching some of these problems.
Yeah, the questions themselves are a little bit hard to understand for non-native English speakers, and even for native English speakers, it often takes me 2 or 3 or 4 rereads before I understand what the question is asking. So we're going to try to help clarify so that you can actually just get down to coding without worrying about all the story and all the extraneous elements inside of the puzzle.
Cool. And by introduction, I'm Alex, one of the co-founders here at W Coding, leader of the devs team. And I think this year for me, I'm hoping to try doing the puzzles in Rust. When we first started recording this a couple hours ago, I had no idea how I was going to install Rust. But then since then, I've discovered there's a REPL online for Rust. I'm going to see if maybe I can get going with that. But so maybe thinking 98%, 99% this year, I'm going to be doing it in Rust.
Cool. Yes, I'll introduce myself. I'm Scott. I'm one of the developers here at W Coding. I do mainly front end using React and React Native. For this year's Advent of Code, I'm probably going to stick with JavaScript. It's what I'm most comfortable with, and with my family at home, I don't have much time to spend learning a new language. I also did Advent of Code most of the way last year. I think I completed 17 or 18 of the puzzles, but this year I hope to do them all. Alexi?
All right, I'm actually Alexi. I'm working also for W Coding. I haven't done the Advent of Code just last year, just a few days, but not entirely like the other two. I might do actually this year in Python or JavaScript. Not sure yet. Didn't make my mind. So I will see.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Farouk. I'm also one of the developers at W Coding. I have been working here for 1 year, and this is my first time trying Advent of Code, thanks to my teammates here. And I have been thinking to do this year's Advent of Code in Python. This is one of the languages that I enjoy working, but lately I didn't have a chance to use it that much. So might as well use it and refresh my knowledge of Python with these challenges. Excited to start this year's Advent of Code.
So a quick intro to Advent of Code, at least on the overall view, and then we'll get into what the Advent of Code itself looks like, and then we'll talk about on a day-to-day basis. But the Advent of Code, I think, is great in the sense that there are puzzles where it starts out, I wouldn't say easy, but it starts out approachable, and then as time goes on, it gets more and more difficult. I would like to say that it's language agnostic. So like, as you have heard us say, we're going to probably doing it in different languages. At the end of it, the result that we submit as answers are either going to be strings or numbers, right? And so it keeps it nice and approachable that way in terms of how you want to solve things.
Yeah, unlike some of the other coding challenge websites that actually run your code on the website, Advent of Code, you only give it an answer. You have to run all of your code locally.
No. And so without further ado, let's read the first day's, at least the intro to the first day, which also introduces what Advent of Code, how it describes itself, at least for this year. Advent, for those of you guys wondering, is just I don't know, some sort of Catholic holiday thing.
Yeah.
I don't
Christmas
know.
tradition in a lot of countries.
I don't know if I think it's done in Europe as well, but I know,
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. We do it in France.
yeah. But you know, each year, I know my friends had gotten these boxes with doors on them. And each day they would open a door and behind the door would be a treat or a toy or something like that.
I have one this year with beer. I have a different craft beer from Germany every day of December.
How big are we talking?
500 milliliters, the tall boys.
So I mean, how big is this box?
That's a big
It's on their box. It was heavy. So
25 beers.
Well, only 24 actually. It
24.
only goes up to the 24th. Because on Christmas, I guess they assume you'll have wine or champagne or something else.
You got gypped, man. I expected like a 1 liter. Anyway, so that's the idea of the advent. But instead, these are puzzles because you know we're nerds and we like puzzles. So that's where we're going. So without further ado, let me share my screen. And we'll get to the intro for day one. Day one, sonar sweep. You're minding your own business on a ship at sea when the overboard alarm goes off. You rush to see if you can help. Apparently, one of the elves tripped and accidentally sent the sleigh keys flying into the ocean. Wah, wah, wah. Before you know it, you're inside a submarine. The elves keep ready for situations like this. Of course they do. It's covered in Christmas lights, because of course it is. And it even has an experimental antenna that should be able to detect the keys if you can boost its signal strength high enough. Not the first time they've lost these keys. There's a little meter that indicates the antenna signal strength by displaying 0 through 50 stars.
Okay.
Your instincts tell you that in order to save Christmas, you need to get all 50 stars by December 25th. Collect the stars by solving puzzles. 2 puzzles will be made available on each day in the Advent calendar. The second puzzle is unlocked when you complete the first. Each puzzle grants 1 star. Good luck.
All right, that was a good intro to what Advent of Code is and how it works.
So you'll see when you first start out with Advent of Code and you sign up using one of the federated logins, this calendar. Right now it's blank. In past years, it's been some sort of like the first year, I think it was a Christmas tree. It was a gray Christmas tree. And as you solved every day, it lit up the Christmas tree as you went up the Christmas
Do
tree.
you want to show one of the previous years? I think if you click on the events, you can go to, or
I
just
could
change
just
the
go to
URL.
it. Yeah, 2015, I believe, was the first year. And I only did half the year, but you can kind of see like half the year was lit up, half the year wasn't.
That's cool.
I haven't gotten to all of it yet.
Oh,
And then
So every year it'll be a different picture too. So that's not what it's going to look like this year.
2016, I think I only did up to 19 and I skipped 11.
There's a moving subway
Yeah.
or a monorail. That's cool.
2017, let's go through the log. 2017, I did the entire year, but it's some sort of puzzle circuit
Oh,
thing.
that's really cool. It's all animated. Yeah, and you have to build the picture by answering the questions.
Yeah. So as you answer the questions, more and more is revealed. This one we did 7.
We don't know what the picture
Don't
is.
know what the rest
We
of the
only got a
picture is.
hat.
I've been, as I find time, going back and backfilling some of these. 2019, I have 0. I didn't do it at all, apparently.
It's like a solar system.
Yeah, something. And then last year, I did the entire.
That's
set.
cool.
tornado? It's
Last
a
year's story was
tornado.
all about Santa's journey to a tropical island for his vacation, with a lot of detours on the way.
Hurricane.
And a storm that blew him off course. So it's cool. The finished picture shows like the map and everywhere he traveled.
Yeah. And so it looks like, in 2021, as I think you said before, 2020, I didn't remember for 2020, but I guess it reveals itself as you go along instead of showing you like a gray version like it did in 2015.
Yeah, you can see here, this one too, like the numbers are reordered too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 17, 9, 16. So you can't really guess ahead of time what it's going to look like. As you answer questions, it reveals the picture.
All right.
2021.
And then you'll see day 2 will be revealed in 21 hours.
So that's 2 p.m. Korean time.
Yeah. 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, US.
And 10 a.m. Uzbekistan time.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the overall thing. I mean, before we get into it, some of the tips that you know what, let's go through the tips at the end. I think it makes more sense at the end after we go through introducing the first stage puzzle.
Yeah, well, real quick, let's clarify some of the things that we read in the first few paragraphs. It said that you need to get 50 stars before December 25th. You don't have to. You can go at your own pace. These puzzles will be up forever, well, at least for many years. So you can even go back and do previous years anytime that you want. You don't have to finish everything before December 25th. But each puzzle does have 2 stars possible. So each day there will be a puzzle that has 2 parts. If you finish part 1, you get 1 star. If you finish the second part, you get the 2nd star. So every day you can get 2 stars. So a total of 50 stars if you complete all 25 days.
And you don't have to do them in order. If you get stuck on one day and it's not looking good for you and you just want to move on because you're sick of this puzzle and sick of thinking about it, which will happen in later days.
They get harder, progressively harder.
Yeah, don't feel bad about skipping a day and then going back. I mean, you can see even on mine, one of the years I had skipped day 11 for some reason. And then you can just go back to it sometime when you're ready to go back to it. Okay. So let's start with the first day. Scott, you want to read the first days?
Sure, I'll read it. All right, we already read the first 3 paragraphs. Let's start here. As the submarine drops below the surface of the ocean, it automatically performs a sonar sweep of the nearby sea floor. On a small screen, the sonar sweep report, your puzzle input, appears. Each line is a measurement of the sea floor depth as the sweep looks further and further away from the submarine. For example, suppose you had the following report: 199, 200, 208, 210, and so on. This report indicates that scanning outward from the submarine, the sonar sweep found depths of 199, 200, 208, 210, and so on. The first order of business is to figure out how quickly the depth increases, just so you know what you're dealing with. You never know if the keys will get carried into deeper water by an ocean current or a fish or something. To do this, count the number of times a depth measurement increases from the previous measurement. There is no measurement before the first measurement. In the example above, the changes are as follows. 199, no previous measurement. 200 increased, 208 increased, 210 increased, 200 decreased. Well, okay, let's look at those a little bit more carefully. So we have to compare each line to the line above it and see if it increased or decreased. So if we look at the first line, 199, there's no previous line. That's the first measurement. So it didn't increase or decrease. But the second line, 200, well, if we compare that to 199, it increased because 200 is bigger than 199. And the next line, 208, that's bigger than 200, so the value increased. Again, 210 is bigger than 208, it increased. But then the next line, 200, that's smaller than 210, so the value decreased. And it tells us in bold up above, we want to count the number of times a depth measurement increases. So that's the final answer that we're going to give, is how many times did it increase? And at the bottom of the screen here, we can see the answer for that sample input. They tell us, in this example, there are 7 measurements that are larger than the previous measurement. So for the sample, the answer is 7. But for your puzzle input, it's going to be something very different. I think for my puzzle input this year, and probably everyone's, it's 2,000 lines. So that means that your answer is going to be somewhere between 1 and 2,000, probably somewhere near the middle of that range. And yeah, if you get a number larger or smaller, then you know that you made a mistake. So I think that this question isn't too difficult to understand. I think it's a very short question. You just have to compare the numbers to the number before it and see if it increased or decreased. I can't really explain it much more simply than that.
Yeah, no, that's why it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and one of the harder things is just filtering out the story from the question. So I think that makes it very clear. Just looking at the sample input really helps you to understand the question.
As for tips on how to, approach these kind of puzzles, not only for this day, obviously, but for, following this as well. One of the tips that I've given is to try to measure or to be somewhat cautious about the amount of pre-optimization that you do. There is a second part, but you can't really guess what the second part's going to be. So don't spend too much time over optimizing your code, thinking like, oh, I really know I can run this in ON time by doing all this stuff. I think the first thing you probably should look at is getting the puzzle solved,
right,
in some way, or at least finding an approach that's that will end up leading to the answer. It might not be a great approach, but it's an approach to the answer.
If you get the answer, you got the answer.
Yeah, if you get the answer, you get the answer, right?
You get the star.
But then once you get it, then go back and try to see, was there a better way of doing this? Then start doing the optimization. But if you start doing pre-optimization too early on, it's going to get more confusing doing the optimization and solving the puzzle than it is if you were just, trying to think through the puzzle itself. Some of it will come naturally because later on, as the second part of the questions, a large number of these are going to be increasing in complexity either in space or time. And so it's going to force you to optimize in some way. But again, you can't really guess which way it's going to go necessarily.
Yeah, I guess the main tip that I would give is to use the sample input. So on each question, they'll give you an example input and the answer for that sample input. Use that in your code. So the sample input is usually short, like 5 to 15 lines maybe, whereas your real input is usually thousands or hundreds of lines. So your code is going to take a lot longer to run with the real input. And that's a waste of time if your code isn't good to begin with. So always run your code using the sample input until you get the correct answer. Once you can match the correct answer for the sample input, only then should you try running it with the real input. You'll save a lot of time that way.
Yeah. Yeah, actually what Scott says is quite right. Like, to pile up on what he said, try to do not submit too fast. Like, make sure like the sample and the answer they gave you, it's correct. And if it's correct, then you can try it with your input and then submit it. But because if you submit too fast and it's wrong, then you might get blocked. So
it punishes you for wrong answers.
Yeah, like you might not be able to submit for the next 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes.
I think it doubles every time you enter a wrong answer.
Like that. I don't remember exactly, but there's something like that.
Yeah, so you can't shotgun or guess.
You can't just brute force.
Yeah.
One,
No.
two,
Yeah.
no.
Let me write a program that submits all the possible answers at the same. Yeah, you can't do that.
No, you'll end up waiting hours or days.
No. Alrighty. Is there anything else that we need to cover?
Right.
Did you want to talk about the basic format of our recordings? Like our recording schedule? And what
yeah.
we do?
So we're going to be trying to cover questions on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And so on Monday, we're going to try to cover the questions from Saturday, Sunday, Monday. On Wednesday, we'll try to cover questions from Tuesday and Wednesday. Friday, we cover Thursday and Friday, and so on. Answers, we're going to try to only do one per day. And so we give you that 2 or 3 day gap, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, to go and solve your questions. It's going to seem kind of maybe silly on the first couple of days questions if they're going to be easy, because then we're like, oh, it only took me X number of minutes or whatever to solve this problem. Why not just go to the next problem the next day? But you'll appreciate it when you get to 15 plus, and it starts getting a little bit more difficult, and maybe you need more than a day. I have kids at home. It's not so much that I can't do it, it's I don't have the time. So I would appreciate having a little bit more time through days rather than having to sit down and do like a 3-hour chunk of time, because I just don't have that.
Yeah, I think according to our schedule, we're going to finish around the middle of January with all of the answers.
Well, last year you actually started to feel like, oh, that's getting out there. Because
Yeah.
you pretty much.
When I started giving up last year around like question 17 or 18, at that point they were taking me 4 or 5 hours. And also sleeping on it and thinking about it in my sleep, and laying in bed trying to think about it, waking up trying some things.
A plus B plus C is like you find
It took hours. Day one, probably 10 minutes or less.
Okay.
Day two, maybe a little bit longer. By the time you get past like day 10, they're going to take a long time.
Yeah.
And they will take significantly longer for your code to run too.
Right.
I know in the about section here in Advent of Code, it says that every question should be able to run in under 15 seconds on 10-year-old machines. Yeah, that was not the case for me last year because, of course, I'm a beginner, or I was a beginner coder last year. My code was not optimized. I remember one day I put a timer in my code to see how long it would run, and it was going to take 8 hours for my code to run before it could spit out an answer. That was a long time. So yeah, but after I wrote that code, I was able to look at it, see some patterns, see some different things that I didn't see at the beginning. And I was able to redo a lot of my code and come up with an answer that ran in 200 milliseconds.
8 hours is a good way to leave your room.
Yeah. Middle of winter.
Yeah.
Some of them still though, I know some of my code took several minutes to run.
Okay, and regarding the submission time, so if I submit it and there is a wrong answer, it will extend the duration before I can submit again, right?
Yeah, it'll block you from submitting for a certain waiting period, and that waiting period increases every time you submit.
Will they remove that block, let's say after a day or two, or will they keep it forever?
It keeps rolling.
I don't know.
But it's per question. It's individual for that question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like if you're blocked from answering question 1, you can still go on to question 2, assuming question 2 is already open.
Yeah. So let's say my block time has reached to 1 hour, and I come back to that same question after a few days. So I still have that 1 hour block. Like if I make a wrong submission, will they extend my 1 hour to like 1 hour and 30 minutes, or will it start from the beginning?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
Hopefully that situation doesn't arise.
Yeah.
Try with your
That's all right. Yeah, try with the sample input. Make sure you're getting the correct answer for the sample input. Really, most of the time, if your code can get the correct answer for the sample input, it's good code and you're gonna get the right answer for the real input.
But
It might take longer.
if you
but-
take the example of leak code, for example, if you try the sample, sometimes your code run fine, but there is extra.
Yeah,
extra
so
tests.
sometimes that one
yeah.
edge case that wasn't exactly covered by your code.
I think they do.
That does
Yeah.
Leak code also has time included too.
Yeah,
Your
there
code
is
has to
time.
run in 10 seconds or less. Advent of Code doesn't have any restrictions like that at all, because you're not running code on the website. You're
Right.
running your code locally.
Yeah, but even if you're running, if you're looking through your questions, it'll like just, maybe it'll just happen to say somewhere in the entire paragraph, ignore zeros, and it keeps going, but then you forget to ignore the zeros, right? And then the sample doesn't include any zeros, so you don't include it in your code, and your code runs perfectly, but then your actual input includes zeros, right? And so there is going to be times where there's going to be a couple gotchas. So where the sample code runs okay, but if you look either back through the problem to see, did I miss one of the rules? Or look through, just take a random look through your input and see, oh, there's something that doesn't work right here. Or what I've also done is program into the code where if it ever encounters a line that is not expected, to spit it out, so it at least alerts me that, oh, this was unexpected line, I don't know what to do with it. It keeps going, but at least it tells you, this is interesting, this is outside of what was expected.
Well, I think that's one of the things that we can help by doing this recording, by discussing it as a group, is we can make sure that we read and do catch those gotcha things.
Sure.
Those little extra parameters that
Yeah.
you remember for later. With 4 of us discussing it, it's much higher chance that we will remember it and someone will notice, hey, does this have an effect?
Yeah, and hopefully you'll remember to include it in your code.
Yeah.
That's another part.
Yeah, because we're not coding together. We're gonna
You
break
might
up.
remember, but you might not.
I
You might
know.
talk about it, but you might not remember.
24 hours blocked.
Yeah.
We can't access it. We can't use some
I'm gonna create a new account. And try it again.
Copy paste. Yeah.
Get all my stars back. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
All right, I'm excited. It's gonna be fun.
I think so.
yeah, I'm excited too. My first advent of code.
Yeah.
Fun.
All right, so we'll see you guys again on Wednesday. Oh, Friday, sorry, today, Wednesday, December 1st. We'll see you again on Friday, December 3rd, where we'll be covering the questions for day 2 and day 3, or the first part of the questions for day 2, first part of questions for day 3. And we will cover first and second part of the answers for day 1.
All right.
All right, good luck, everyone. Happy coding.
Yeah, good luck.
Good luck.
Happy coding.
Happy coding.
Bye.
See ya.
Good luck. Good luck, guys.
See ya.